Hello, and firstly, welcome to everyone viewing on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. As you know, this is probably this is the first live week we've hosted at Packaging Europe, but circumstances have made it necessary. So we're very grateful we're at least able to kind of still reach out to our audience in this way. I'll say right away, we apologise in advance for any technical hitches or unfortunate lockdown hair. And for my part, I'll try not to swear, but that's the minimum baseline. Move on to a bit of basic housekeeping. Viewers on YouTube, you'll see you can comment on the right-hand side of the screen using the chat function. So we would actively encourage you to put any questions you want to our guest today, and we'll try to address as many of those as we can. Okay, so the focus of today's broadcast is a somewhat wide-ranging one. As the name sustainability leader suggests, we're talking packaging sustainability and all this encompasses. So to that end, we've invited sponsors of our Sustainable Packaging Summit and Sustainability Awards to give their perspectives. All our speakers represent organisations which, as we'll see, are trying to, in their own ways, kind of challenge some of the accepted narratives around sustainability and try to find their own solutions to the biggest challenges our industry faces. I'll be speaking to them kind of generally first and then individually in turn. So I'm delighted to introduce our panel today, and perhaps you could each give a wave as I introduce you. We have our platinum sponsors. So we have Dave Clark, who is Vice President Sustainability at Amcor. We have Jan de Hart, who is Senior Director Innovation, Sustainability and Compliance at Avery Dennison. Ida Kierko, who is Global Sustainability Manager at KP Films. Nicholas Jolly, who is Vice President Plastics and Feedstocks at Trinseo, and also President of Styrenic Circular Solutions. And our gold sponsors, we have Marta Gill, who is Head of Marketing and Sustainability at Evertis, and Trevor van Eerde, who is Global Sustainability Manager at Husky. So welcome to you all. To kick things off, I'd kind of like to ask a question that I think is going to be relevant to all of our participants and also to everybody listening, in fact. What do you envisage being the long-term impact of the COVID-19 pandemic when it comes to sustainable packaging innovation? I mean, how will consumers and governments respond to sustainability after the pandemic peaks? And will there be this new normal we keep hearing about? So over to you guys, and who would like to open that up? Dave, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Hi, everyone. I certainly think there will be a new normal, but at this point, it's difficult to say exactly what that will be or what time frame it'll take to get there. Certainly today, consumers are shopping differently than they did before, minimizing trips and preparing more food at home. And that's really helping people bring into focus the role that packaging plays in protecting products, not only food and beverages, but cleaning supplies, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment. And keeping everyone safe. And I think many of us on this webinar, our companies have been recognized as essential. Governments are busy responding to the immediate crisis, but as they turn to investing in the future and economic recovery, I think it's a real opportunity to leverage our position as an essential industry to help solve some of the problems that we have, in particular around recycling infrastructure and helping to update that infrastructure that was essentially designed for products that we made 20 and 30 years ago to the products that are being used today. So I think it creates some real opportunities. If there's a benefit to the crisis, it's that people are seeing that the environment can improve rapidly with a reduction in human activity. And I think that gives us a lot of hope that if we make the right choices, we can see real environmental impacts in the short term. And at Amcor, we don't think it's reducing the impact of or a focus on sustainability in the long term. I think we have an opportunity to show people that they can have safe products and they can have great packaging, and we can have a more sustainable environment. So we're certainly doing things differently right now, doing product development remotely. Our R&D and sustainability teams are working with customers and suppliers in our factories in different ways, but in no way is that reducing our focus or commitment to sustainability in the long run.
Okay, fantastic. And would anybody else like to jumped on that question. Maybe Jan, do you have anything to?
Yeah, we at Avery Dennison, I think we are very much aligned to what David was saying about the effect of COVID-19 on the packaging as a whole, but also on labeling, because our products, of course, go hand in hand with packaging materials. Our materials are stuck on packaging as a label material. And I agree. I think consumers will see the value and the safety of packaging much more than they saw before. But I think also in terms of government, if I look here at Europe, with the Green Deal is what, and also what we hear in the press here, they really think there will be a new normal also by pushing more the Green Deal in Europe. I think, and that will. I think that will also push legislation also more into a more sustainable direction. The other thing that could be a learning from that, and I say could be because I'm not sure, what's going to happen on the long term, is that it is possible to mobilize consumers. It's possible to have the people in the countries being disciplined in what they are doing. And I think an important factor in sustainability is the collection of packaging waste, and that there is a certain discipline needed for that. And COVID-19 shows that people can be disciplined. So that could be a very positive effect on packaging as a whole, and on the recycling of packaging. Yeah, so I think that could be a long-term effect on the usage of packaging. So let's say the after usage of the packaging.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. And Ida, what do you have to say to that question?
Yeah, so I mean, I completely agree with what my colleagues just said, and I think that it's a bit difficult to say what will happen long term because the timings are changing a lot. But I think that really, like short term, what we're seeing, it's like a really deep change in how consumers are buying. So there's this big increase on e-commerce, which I think that will shift quite a lot of things. And then as well, one of the key things, and that we've been saying for a long time here at KP, is that plastic packaging, where it's offering consumers, it's offering that they receive their food safety, like in a safe manner, and that it's like plastic packaging, it's like safeguarding these products. So I think that this is another key topic that consumers are seeing right now. And then it's a bit related short term and long term as well. I think that probably governments, they might delay some of the implementation of legislation, depending on the countries, on how the COVID it's affecting. For example, I'm here in Spain, we're having like a huge effect. So we'll need to see how this evolve over time. But that would be the main things that I can say right now.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. And maybe we move on to Nicholas. Same question.
Yeah, hi. Well, no, I completely agree with everything that's been said. I think we're all, in the middle of it, and we're doing the most to keep our employees, our customers safe. And by the way, to keep the business running, because I mean, packaging is one of the area that has been to some extent booming when you have supply chain disruptions on the other side. So far, with touching wood, everything went okay. No, I agree with everything. We don't know what the new normal will be, but it is noticeable indeed that notably, I mean, some things notably like the safety virtue of packaging is coming a bit more in the radar scope, and maybe the sanitary properties of packaging had been forgotten, maybe taken for granted for quite a few years.
Yeah, I think so.
We don't believe that the overall direction we believe is going to stay the same. We're going towards more sustainability. Everybody's talking about it today. So it's probably more about going, maybe there's going to be a bit of a different way to go there than what we would have said, like 4 months ago. maybe a slight change in pace, maybe different economic stimulus or things like this. We do notice recently that some governments start considering those, notably the sanitary virtue of packagings, maybe a bit differently, potentially start reconsidering their decisions. We also hear that from NGOs, which is maybe a little more less expected. So it's more on the how to go there, but it doesn't. We don't believe at all that it will change direction. So we continue full blast on circularity and polystyrene recycling.
So yeah, full steam ahead on that. Okay. And well, thank you for that. And Marta, could you?
Yeah. So since everyone has mentioned, I think I don't want to be too repetitive with the points that have already been mentioned, but obviously in packaging, one of our top priorities is food preservation and safety. So I think that consumers in general are valuing more the benefits that food packaging and plastics in particular, and in our case, PET in particular, bring to their lives. So I think that this is something that maybe had been forgotten with all this war on plastics recently, and it's now already more valued by the customers, as well as the public in general and the governments. But I also think that it's important that we still maintain our focus also in balancing this priority with sustainability goals. And I think that these shouldn't be forgotten within this new normal. So I think it's important that different teams within our company focus on the different priorities and work together in being able to provide a full solution to our customers in all aspects.
Absolutely. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Trevor, I'd be interested to know what you think about this as well before we move on to our one-on-one interviews.
Yeah, I think my all the colleagues here have touched on some great points. You know, we have an opportunity to reestablish the value of packaging. Nicholas said it great. Like, I think consumers have forgotten that it's not just a visual or a marketing piece. It's about delivering food safely, protection, hygiene. I think it's an opportunity for the industry to probably make a bit of an emotional connection with the consumer. And I think you might see the consumers find a little bit more security in packaging. You know, simple things like a cucumber wrapped in plastic or a drinking surface that remains protected until consumed. I think these are things that are going to resonate moving forward, that especially on the hygiene side with consumers. And as everybody said, this isn't a time to then slow down, but keep the focus on how do we continue to use more recycled content? How do we continue to get more plastics back and transition to a fully circular economy?
Okay, thank you. Fantastic, and thanks to all of you for your answer to that question. I think it's time to move on now to our individual discussions with our speakers about their company's approach to sustainability. So first up, we have Dave Clark, Vice President of Sustainability at Amcor. So,
yep, hello.
Hello, Dave. What would you say are the specific sustainability challenges for packaging manufacturers such as yourselves with, you know, such a broad ranging product portfolio? And how do you think the industry should approach these, and where do you think it is possibly falling short still?
You know, Amcor does have a broad portfolio. I think our biggest sustainability challenge is, as we've been discussing, is how packaging is perceived. Many people outside of our industry see packaging and equate it with waste still. And they don't necessarily understand the important role that we've been talking about in the discussion so far. So regardless of where that packaging sits in our broad portfolio, we're working hard to design that packaging to be recyclable or reusable, or in some cases compostable, and then make sure that the rest of the infrastructure is in place so that when consumers are finished with the packaging, they can have a responsible end of life scenario for it, and ideally, you know, make sure that material gets used again, sometimes back into our own packaging. And I think as an industry where we've been falling short is not conveying that information and that vision to consumers and governments and decision makers. So I think that's one of our big opportunities to show people that they can have the safe products that they want and great packaging and a better environment all at the same time.
Okay. And do you think you could explain some of the ways that the Amcor itself is kind of progressing towards a lower carbon future?
When it comes to carbon, we look at carbon from three perspectives. First, we have aggressive GHG reduction targets for our 250 manufacturing sites through our Enviro Action program that also looks at not only greenhouse gas emissions reductions, but waste and water that come from all of our operations. We set a goal to reduce the GHG emissions intensity of our business 60% by 2030. We're already halfway there, and we're on track to achieving that goal. Secondly, and probably more important, is we measure and report the GHG emissions of all of the materials that we buy to put into our products, which is much larger than the energy that we actually consume in our plants. And we're able to report that through our supply chain, through CDP, and also measure the carbon footprint of each product that we're making and delivering to customers. And we're able to reduce the GHG emissions of those products over time through design, through lightweighting and down gauging, using less material, also using more recycled material, which has not only a lower carbon footprint, but helps to enable the recycling industry and infrastructure that we need to get our packaging back. And in fact, our rigid packaging group has done an excellent job of increasing the amount of recycled content that's going into our PET and HDPE bottles around the world. They've just introduced a 100% recycled PET vitamin bottle, for example. It's a new category for us. We also offer the option of renewable materials, which also usually have a lower carbon footprint. But probably the biggest impact that not only Amcor, but our industry is having toward a lower carbon future is the area of reducing food waste. By protecting products and increasing shelf life, we're reducing not only waste, but the carbon footprint that comes from food waste, which is, an order of magnitude larger than the impact of the packaging products that Amcor and our industry makes. So that's the real opportunity, I think, toward moving toward a lower carbon future that we should all be looking at.
So you're seeing this in terms of, opportunities rather than looking at the negatives, I'm getting from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And I know you're kind of interested in talking about the role of life cycle analysis in promoting a more circular economy. Is this a key part of Amcor's strategy?
It is, and we think life cycle analysis needs to play a really important role in moving toward a more sustainable future. It's key to Amcor's approach. We use a proprietary LCA tool that we call Asset, which is certified by the Carbon Trust, and allows us to assess the greenhouse gas emissions, energy use, water, and other impacts of our packaging to ensure that the new products that we're developing have a better footprint than the products that have been used in the past. We also see circular economy concepts as important tools toward moving toward a more sustainable future. What's really interesting today is that these two concepts, LCA and circular economy, don't always line up exactly. We see situations where circular economy tends to focus more on physical waste and maybe not take GHG emissions into account. And we're trying to look at more deeply where the two may have conflicts. For example, in reusable packaging, which may be beneficial from a waste reduction standpoint, but doesn't always have the LCA benefits depending on how it's designed. So we're trying to dig into that more deeply. In terms of the different materials that Amcor uses, if you look at our history over the last 100 years, we started as a paper manufacturing company. And the BEMIS organization, which we recently merged with, started as a bag for a company making cotton bags for food packaging. So over the years, we've created packaging from paper, cloth, glass, metals, a number of different types of materials. And it turns out that in most cases, plastic is the best material for packaging today. It's lightweight, it's low cost, it has a low carbon footprint, has great barrier properties, but those same properties that are so great in terms of packaging mean it's a problem when it gets into the environment. So we know we need to work on that part of the situation as well, balancing the LCA benefits with the circular economy solutions that need to come into play. If people had been able to attend Interpack this year, they would have seen several new recyclable products that Amcor is developing, including paper-based products. For example, a new Matrix soft cheese wrap, which was just relaunched as a recyclable product. So combining the LCA benefits, greenhouse gas reduction, with recyclability and circular economy really needs to be part of the solution.
Okay, so I mean, the next question I was going to ask you, I suppose you've kind of already answered. But, are you kind of materials agnostic when it comes to packaging development, or is it?
Yeah, when I hear people,
specific case.
When I hear people talk about being materials agnostic, it's usually an industry group that's trying to be very inclusive and not offend anyone. And I think, our approach is really that, we should be using the best materials for each packaging application, which doesn't mean it's being agnostic. It means it's being enthusiastic about using the right material. And we recognize in some cases there are materials that aren't going to be appropriate either because of human health issues or environmental issues, or they're not going to fit into a circular economy where we want to develop a viable and economically sustainable recycling program. So, I would say that we think it's important that we have a wide variety of materials to use, but they also do need to be appropriate. And agnostic's probably the right word. I'd say it's more, enthusiastic and deliberate about the right materials for the right applications.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. If you have nothing else to add, Dave, I'd like to say thank you very much for talking to me, and we'll move on to
thank you.
our next interviewee, who is Jan de Hart from Avery Dennison.
Yeah.
Hello, Jan.
Okay. Hi.
Again. So, firstly, what would you say are the specific sustainability challenges within your particular area? I mean, obviously there are many different metrics to measure sustainability by, and there's no single agreement on where the best solution lies at all. So, how do you think the industry should approach these things, and where is it falling short?
Yeah, if you particularly look at our company and within our industry, we already started setting sustainability goals in 2015 for 2025. So that was the first step that we made. But as we continue, we are going much more in focusing on these areas. And if you talk about challenges, what are the biggest challenges when we went through that road is to look at differently at our product development and product design in terms of, in the past, we looked at using our product onto a packaging to make the packaging attractive, on the shelf. But now we need to look what happens after that with the product when the product is being used. What happens to the packaging itself, and what is the functionality, or how can the label be part of that? And that thinking is different from what we had before. So maybe later I can talk a bit more about eco-design, how you can implement that, or how we use that in designing the product in stage gate reviews, where you look at the properties of the product in the after use. The other challenge that we find doing so is that we are now looking at how are products being recycled, and what you find is that in different areas of the world, or in different countries, or in different even you could say cities, there's a different way of recycling materials. So you could find different temperatures in the washing process. So it's very difficult to understand whether there would be a similar way of recycling in the future, and if there is, what direction it will be going, and so sometimes you probably have to bet on different horses at the same time to find the right solution. Yeah, so that is, I would say that is one of the biggest challenges that we are at this moment facing in this particular part of the industry. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And can you maybe tell us a bit about how Avery Dennison's working to meet its own sustainability targets?
Yeah,
I'm thinking about.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, so what we sorry, so what we as I said, we set targets already in 2015. And yeah, what we are doing is looking at when you talk about the product itself, we try or we are reducing the use of raw materials. So making smarter, thinner materials that remain the same properties as they had before, but using less materials. Um, Also increasing the content of recycled materials in our products, so both in our paper label materials as in our filmic label materials. We increase the use of recycled content. And the other thing is enabling recycling of packaging. We have examples of products specifically in the polyester bottle area, where we have products that where the label functionality supports the clean removability of labels, and therefore could result in clean polyester from the polyester bottle recycle stream. So those things is what we are doing. And coming back to my earlier point, what we think is that also other materials like HDPE or PP, the future in recycling probably is to get those as clean as possible, either through chemical recycling or through mechanical recycling. And we build functionalities in our labels that make it possible to get that as clean as possible by, for instance, removable systems where the label can easily be removed from the bottle after the use.
Okay,
And then,
thank you.
then of course, also, not only looking at the product itself, but also at the production, reducing greenhouse gases, like David also spoke about. We also have initiatives and are executing on greenhouse gas reduction by having windmills at some of our plants, solar panels, and also buying green energy for our plants, but also reducing the use of water and energy overall.
Thanks. And given the the challenges we're all aware of sourcing a reliable stream of recycled feedstocks, how do you think the industry can support and improve the recycled content of plastics products?
Yeah, so talking about recycled content, I think where the industry can help, first of all, of course, we have, when you talk about the paper products, I think FSC is one of those things. I think because that also contains recycled paper fibers to be used. On the other hand, to find consistent sources of let's say post-consumable or post-industrial waste could be a challenge, because to remain having the right properties of your product, you want to have as less as contamination as possible, and that could be a challenge. Certainly in areas where you talk about direct food contact, I think it's very crucial that that the product is very clean and does not contaminate or has an effect on the food itself. So I think that is a challenge, and I think in that particular area, chemical recycled plastics are of course similar properties as virgin plastics. So that could be a solution there, but still a lot of work has to be done till we get to that point. But there are sources. Post-industrial sources of plastics that can be used in our materials as recycled content, and where we remain the properties. And what we do in Avery Dennison, we start with low levels of recycled content to make sure that the product still remains there, having their functionality, and we increase as we go along. Let's say you can start with 10% in the PE film, and then move it up to 20, 30, and hopefully in the end up to 90, maybe 100%, depending on the quality that you can get. Yeah, so I think that is an area that we are looking at. Yeah, so also increasing that content is of course an important point, but also looking at monomaterials for flexible packaging is also an important area where we are looking at. And you know, in reclosure systems for flexible packaging is an area where we are looking at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's probably all we've got time for in this slot now. So thanks for that. I'd now like to move on to Ida.
Hello.
Now, Ida's from KP Films, which you focus on high barrier packaging films with a high percentage recycled content. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
So firstly, again, I think this is an important question to ask you. Well, what would you define as the specific sustainability challenges in your particular niche, and you know how the industry could approach these?
I think that we've touched it several points, but I will just re-emphasize it. And I think that we are all quite aware of all the attacks that the plastic packaging industry has received from consumers, media, and NGOs. But I think that most of these attacks, they are because plastics, they are like, when they are marine litter or land litter, they are seen as a waste rather than a resource. So then it's when all these attacks, they start to happen. I'm sure that pretty all of us, we know this quote from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that it was saying that by 2050, there will be more plastics in the ocean than fish, unless the industry cleans it up. And I think that that's, I mean, it's a fact. Like if people, they see plastics in the oceans, in the river, in land, we're completely attacked by that, because plastics, they shouldn't be there. And that's another thing, plastics, they don't get there by themselves. So we really need to show consumers, media, NGOs, everyone, of all the properties that plastic have. And I think that as an industry, we need to really work together to emphasize that. I'm not 100% sure that we've done that really in the past, like as a great cohesion, just emphasizing that, yeah, that plastics, they provide safety and hygiene products, that they act as a barrier and protect the food against moisture, gas, microorganism, etc. And I think that it was David that he mentioned that the environmental, economic, and social impact of plastic packaging is way less than the food that it contains. So we really need to see like plastic packaging not on its own. We need to see like as a food, as a solution, as a whole solution, like with the food that it contains. And then I think that, yeah, as I said, we really need to like stand on it together, saying that plastic in the oceans, it's not acceptable. It's a resource that it's being wasted. And yeah, we need to work the whole industry together in helping that like all the recycling loop, the whole system works properly, so that there's no plastic that it's being left outside, so that it's waste, and that everything gets recycled and it gets back into this recycle loop, so into the circular economy like this. So then the challenges that we'll be facing, it's like how to make the like all plastic packaging recyclable, and that it contains recycled content and so on. But I think that it's key that we are all aligned on the message, and that we make our voice to be heard.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, as you say, it's important for everybody in the industry to play their part and to work together. But maybe you could tell me specifically what goals or initiatives KP Films has set up to ensure the recyclability of your products, and how your products are designed for recyclability.
Yeah, definitely. So in September 2018, we launched our Positive Plastics Pledge. That I'll just try to share one of one slide that I've prepared for this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. So, so yeah, this is like the positive plastics pledge, and this is it's a framework that we built with the 4 set of actions that you can see here, and that they're meant to help to build the circular economy. As you can see, it touches every part of the value chain, and it includes like the design, manufacturing, through the use and recycling of the products. I'll just briefly touch, if I may, like on each of the points. I'll be really brief. I'll do my best. But if someone wants to get some more information, there's some more information on our website. So on the Positive Plastics Pledge, we focus on innovate. And in here, what we want to do is we want to do more with less. We want that we want to be resource efficient. And then on accelerate as well, we want to maximize the use of sustainable materials and taking a range of initiatives to improve recyclability. On educate, it's what I've just mentioned before, that it's about educating and engaging consumers and communities so that they are all aware of the benefits that plastic has. And on activate, I touched it as well before, it's mainly to engage with the industry, governments, and stakeholders so that we all work on this joint effort into valuing plastic. So I think that all these positive plastics pledge that we launch is really focusing on all the points that like to make this circular economy for plastics. Then in particular about on what you said on how we do to ensure that our products are designed for recyclability. And as part of this, of the accelerate pillar, what we are doing, we're really looking into simplifying the range of materials that we're using. So like this, we want to make it clear as well for consumers to know what can be recycled and where they need to put it. In order to do that, what we do, we include sustainable credentials into the beginning of the NPD stage, so that the scientists and the innovation team, they really know, like they can focus from the beginning of the developing of a new product for the, like on the material use, recyclability, the use of recycled content, and so on. While of course they get the first priority, that it's to that the packaging is fit for purpose and that it protects the food that it contains. This is something that we cannot really forget throughout all this. And then as well, so we're committed to phasing out non-recyclable plastics. So we're always, when there's sustainable alternatives, that they exist. And in order to do that, we really work hard to try and align with the recyclability guidelines that different bodies like CFLEX, COTREP, Recoup, and PETCOR, they publish, so that we can align to those guidelines and make that our products are recyclable.
Okay, and finally, when it comes to the inclusion of recycled content in your products, is this something I presume you're hoping to increase, and you think the wider industry should also be doing the same in that regard?
Yes, definitely. I mean, and well, I just mentioned when I just presented the Positive Plastics Pledge, it's really on one of our pillars, that it's on the innovate, and it's about conserving resources. So what we try to do here, we reduce the packaging weight. So we try to make packaging that it's lighter. And then we want to use up to 100% recycled content. At KP, we're really proud because we've been doing that for quite a few years now. And recycled PET, it's really our material of choice. We've invested in infrastructure to make super cleaning technologies part of our processes, so that we can use the recycled PET into our products. And I'll just share again one slide. Hold on, sorry. I think that you should be able to see it now. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So here I just wanted to show you an example of one of our trays. And on this example, you can see a bit of the evolution that we've been through, like for the last 12 years, 13 years. So on the blue bar, you have the carbon footprint of the mentioned trait. And then like this other small bar, it's the weight, and it's the breakdown on virgin and post-consumer PET. As you can see, so from 2007 to 2012, we tend to like keep reducing. Well, we've been reducing the weight throughout every year, and it was in 2011 when we managed to just make this tray with post-consumer PET. So as you can see, like the weight has been reducing and the carbon footprint as well. And from, since in 2015, it's when we launched our elite tray, that it's an elite, it's a tray that it's made of up to 100% of recycled PET. I think that this is a bit like our roadmap and our way to go. During the last 2 years, we used around 260,000 tons of recycled PET in our products. So we're really like pushing ourselves to include as much recycled PET as we can in our products. Of course, always making sure that it's fit for purpose. And just to mention, like we've done like a collaboration with Viridor in the UK to get an annual supply of recycled PET, so that we can ensure that the products that we have enough supply of PET, of recycled PET. And this type of agreements and of partnerships, I think that they are the way to go if we want to ensure that the whole industry is moving to the same direction. So I'm really happy that we have our partnership ourselves and others coming, of course. And I think that the industry, we should all work together to ensure that we can work for this circular economy. It's not something that one company can do alone, or we need to really join forces and work for the same objective.
Okay, I agree. Thank you, Ida. That's really interesting.
Thank you.
I'd now like to, I think it's the turn of Nicholas Jolly of Trinseo.
Hi.
Hi, Nicholas.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. You hear me still?
Yes. So, as a chemical solutions provider and a plastics manufacturer, what do you think the future holds for plastic packaging?
Well, a little bit similar to what we've been saying so far since the beginning. Well, the major development we see, I mean, from our perspective, is truly the transformation into a circular economy. So Trinseo, we're a plastic producer, so I mean, we can help to drive the value chain towards this, and we're fully focused on this. For packaging specifically, the plastic we're making is polystyrene, and it turns out that it's polystyrene in particular stands out as very well suited for recycling. It's kind of inherent to the product, if you like. I mean, one way to see it, I'm not a very technical guy, so polystyrene is very easy to do, and it's very easy to undo as well. So so we're fully focusing on that. There's a number of technologies. We use a couple ourselves. There are more available on the market, and we're really trying to push that. Some of them are already commercial in the US. It's fairly easy, actually, when, I think it's David that was talking about LCA and the full impact. I think that's a very good point. You have a process that allows to very simply put polystyrene waste in the entrance and get the polystyrene raw materials to make polystyrene at the exit. It just undoes it, if you like. Very simple food contact by definition, very efficient, even lower energy than the current processes we use to produce the virgin one. So in the end of it, you have a monomer, which is exactly the same raw material we use for decades to make polystyrene. And then you use that to make brand new polystyrene that is exactly identical to the original one. And this is where it becomes infinite. What's in particular interesting is if you go towards recycling, we're all talking about how, I mean, are we going to try to design things differently and then try to get mono-material? It does cause an issue with, you know, recycling has an issue with multi-material type of packaging. Well, this one, it's no change for anybody, and that's the most interesting part. Is the gigantic advantage is no change further down the chain, meaning our customers don't need to change the packaging design. They don't need to change the packaging machinery, the equipment. Everything remains exactly the same. So this is why our priority remains to scale those up, these technologies, to achieve full circularity as soon as possible. Actually, this is our priority number 1, number 2, and number 3.
Okay. And I know you're also interested to talk about the future of the various recycling technologies in use today. Would you like to say something about that?
Well, can I reuse the word agnostic? If we can. We're technology agnostic. I mean, there's a number of different technologies that exist at different degree of maturity, maybe. And I mean, at term, we believe that the most likely outcome is that most of these technologies will kind of coexist together. Each of them has its own advantages, disadvantages, its own requirements in terms of quality of the waste feed. So we believe they will all continue. The one that is most widespread and the most commonly known is the mechanical recycling, right? Which exists today all over the place for every single material. It can give you 100% recycled product, but not food, which is the major issue. So we're working for polystyrene to achieve the same thing then I think Ida was mentioning, right? Which is the commonly known PET recycling is super clean process that allows you to get a completely food PET. We're working to achieve the same thing for polystyrene. There will be other technologies that other people invest to, some are competitors, some others, this solution that there will probably be able to make food contact as well. Maybe not 100% recycled content, but at least food contact. Now, the reality is if we want to meet the EU targets, we'll need to go beyond this. And this is where we talked about chemical recycling a little bit earlier. I mean, this is where it becomes very important. This is where you depolymerize the plastics when you undo it. And I think this is what stands out today as the best solution. To take the real big next step is to get 100% recycled content. Progress is very promising so far, but in the end, all of these different technologies will all continue probably to exist for different applications, different regions, maybe. So everybody will find its niche, I'm sure.
And I know you've kind of touched on this a bit already, but what challenges do you think we need to overcome to kind of really make this huge paradigm shift happen? And can a single company drive such a large scale change, or do you agree with Ida that we need an industry-wide effort?
Well, there's two questions in one here. So first of all, the challenge. I mean, we've committed that we would make 30% of our plastics recycled that we sell to packaging recycled by 2025. We'll need a number of recycling plants to make that happen. We've made announcements already. Others have made other public announcements of building such plants or going in that direction. Or in fact, right after this call, I have one because our first plant is in engineering phase. So we have a stage gate review right after that call for the first plant. So we're confident in that. Technology is here. It will happen. We're confident the investments will be behind this. Ours investments, other investments. We have one problem all over the place. It's valid for all plastics. How do we feed these plants? How do we access the massive amounts of post-consumer plastic waste that we need compared to what it is today, very, very small, because typically it's going to incineration or landfill. So right now, we don't have enough polystyrene packaging waste that is taken out of the household waste to enter into the recycling chain. again, it's not specific to PS, it's all plastics are in the same, are lacking that stream. So collection and sorting is the key, is the key challenge. And I mean, we're trying to, access people that we typically don't work with, which are waste management companies. And we're working very hard to make sure that this comes. It's going to be a chicken and the egg. Nobody's going to put recycling plants without being sure that there is the feed. And who's going to do the investment to extract the waste stream, plastics waste stream out of households without having the downstream demand, and meaning those recycling plants. So we're trying to move, by bits and in parallel to basically, side by side, just make co-investments at the same time. I think you were asking, what was the other part of the question? I may have forgotten.
Whether whether a single company can drive these large-scale changes, or whether you agree that we need industry-wide effort.
Well, my simple answer: I don't believe any single company can drive that. And by the way, we've been involved in this for years. It's a huge transformation. I mean, what we're talking about here is, it's basically creating a new chain. It's colossal, and one company alone cannot do this, period. However, what we believe is one industry can bring along other industries to drive the transformation. So at least that's our belief. So we've created an industry association called Styrenic Circular Solution, which we typically call SCS, Styrenic Circular Solution. And this is a joint industry initiative that was formed just for that, for value chain partners that have the same vision to join forces and developing and implementing those recycling technologies. We started actually only last year. We were four polystyrene producers. Now, since then, it expanded. We have members from the packaging industry, from upstream industries, from waste management, and we all have the same vision that we need to work together to drive that. So, well, the first thing is it's a great signal, such an alliance of the colossal belief in this common future across the industry. But it's also a key engine to address exactly all of the zillions of little aspects, every single one being very important, that we need to fix to make that transformation, that revolution, that change of value chain happen. We need things like, we need to change norms. We need mass balance certificate schemes. We need collection schemes. We need new categories of raw materials and intermediate to be created, like with specifications attached to it. If we ask, when I say I need PS waste, I don't need PS waste. I need PS waste with a specific specification. Certain things need to not be in there. Certain things, maybe I don't care because I can remove them myself. I need certain content. We need to do all that all together. And of course, we also collaborate with the authorities to help them prioritizing their own action plan. So this is a very long agenda. I don't believe any single one company can drive. So that's why we've decided to unite and create a Styrenic Circular Solution. And yeah, by the way, we're very open for help. So I invite anybody here who is interested by driving towards circularity to join us.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you very much. I'd now like to move on to speak to Marta Gill from Evertis.
Hi, Victoria.
Hello, Marta. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Now, as I've asked some of the others, could you tell me what you would identify as the main environmental challenges that your particular part of the supply chain faces, and how you think the industry is maybe falling short on these?
Well, as you know, our films target mainly the food industry. So for products such as fresh meats, cheese, pizzas, sandwiches, etc.
Yeah.
That one of the principal sustainability challenges our industry faces is in coming up with solutions that further improve our film properties, and that aren't solutions that have already been supplied either by us or through our competitors. Our products are PET based, and they're rigid films that can either be monolayer or multi-layer, and laminated with PE. And these films can have barrier or no barrier, apart from the inert PET barrier. And this will always need to match the needs of the packaged goods in terms of shelf life, product flavor, and the appearance and quality. That must always be maintained until the package reaches a final customer, without, of course, posing any risk in terms of health and safety. So this always means that we must consider a balance between the right packaging to preserve the food and manage food waste. And in some cases, or I'd say in many cases, as of now, only a multi-layer structure can assure the properties for the shelf life and safety of the product. So we always work very closely together with our customers and focus on eco-design. And in many cases, it's possible to reduce the weight of our films. And this is something that we've been doing for several years. And we've seen also, as Aida from KP mentioned, we've seen over the last years a big decrease in terms of film gauge. But we always think of, we also include eco-design in terms of promoting better and easier recyclability. But again, always balancing between the life cycle of the product, food waste, and the functionality of the product. So depending on the final application, this will vary. And in terms of the second part of the question on how do I think the industry should approach this, I think that the PT industry has for a long time already incorporated recycled material. So there's available equipment and processes developed that have already been approved for food contact. Nonetheless, it's also important that the correct production process and raw materials are chosen in order to facilitate the separation of different materials, and always try to promote circular economy. So as I mentioned, we have multi-layer films, and that's many times chosen because of the customer's needs. And because of our process and also the raw materials we choose, such as water-based adhesives, we are able to, together with a company that we have a partnership, use a delamination technology in order to separate the layers and recycle multi-layer products.
Okay. And finally, I know that you have a target of is it up to 50% recycled content in your films? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So actually, we have our own recycling plant since 2003, and we have at times recycled up to 90% of Portugal's PET post-consumer PET bottles. Specifically, this year we recycled 10,000 tons, and that partly supplies our recycled content consumption. But we need to purchase additional quantities outside. So we do this internationally. And apart from purchasing the rPET and flake from the common outside sources, coming back to the partnership I mentioned with this company that has a unique technology that permits incorporating recycled content of post-industrial and post-consumer PET obtained from this delamination process of multi-layer waste. And we reintroduce this into our, as a second raw material in our film production process. So I believe that this was a big achievement for us, and because it's an important step in really moving towards a circular economy for the food, for the food tray sector. Also, another source of our recycled content is that we have a very strict no scrap policy. So all our plants create zero landfill scrap, and we reincorporate 100% of the waste from our extrusion and slitting processes back into our products. So yeah, basically I would divide it into those three sources.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Marta. I think we're getting towards the end of our interview times now. I'd like to speak to Trevor van Eerde next from Husky.
Morning.
Good morning. I know it's very early for you there.
It's not so bad now. It's only 7, so we're well awake now.
Okay. So I'd like to put the same question to you, how you think the industry should approach the question of sustainability. Because I know this is something that obviously you're keen to talk about.
Yeah. I for parts of like the challenges, we see sustainability challenges as an opportunity to use innovation and collaboration to really transform the packaging industry. And I think there's been a lot of comments about what's falling short. I think initially the packaging industry had a lot of focus on how do we make packaging cheap and perform the value so we can get it out and have less food waste, and offer the same consumer protection. But we didn't focus as much as what happens after the consumer's done with the package. And I think that's where we've put a lot of focus on, but up until now was a little bit of an area where we fell short. Sustainability challenges really within our specific industry and as a machine or systems provider, it actually crosses the border. We've talked about the whole value chain. When we look at sustainability, we're thinking about, right from the beginning, the design, the material, the shape. How do we design packages that recyclers want to put through their system? And sustainability challenges start all the way from the beginning. And if you think about PET recycling, a contaminated bottle or contamination in the PET recycling stream goes and crosses many borders. So what Husky's really focused on is how do we understand the challenges that come with PCR? Because as a machine manufacturer, if we make it easier, more economical for customers of ours to use PCR, we can see that as some of the demand. How do we generate more demand for recycled material to help improve the economics and help spur or be a catalyst for some of the recycling? And so we're focusing on understanding how do we dampen that variability that can come with PCR and help produce more bottles and preforms with 100% recycled content as simply and easily as possible. We kind of think about it as like being a damper in terms of variability versus an amplifier.
Okay, thank you. And I know you're also interested in talking about the specific role PET plays with sustainable packaging. You describe it as single-use package for infinite use material. Is that right? Can you explain what you mean by this?
Yeah, we have a great statement at Husky. PET is not single use, and a PET bottle specifically is not single use unless you choose it to be single use. I'd like to challenge what people think of today's classic reuse model. We really see PET as a PET bottle as a single use package, but the material is an infinite use material. And the classic reuse model is focused on washing, but instead of washing PET, we collect it and we melt it, and then we don't have to have bottle tourism where a package is shipped across a country back to the specific manufacturer. We can use that material in a tray. We can use that recycled PET in a bottle. It doesn't have to be a specific beverage brand. And I was thinking about it, spending a lot of time with the kids through this COVID-19 with Play-Doh. It's almost like Play-Doh in the sense that you can make a a seashell, then you can make a fake pizza. You can continually remold it and reshape it, put it through the recycling system, and reuse it again over and over again. And then with the advancement of chemical or advanced recycling, we can actually break the Play-Doh back down into its base constituents or monomers. You know, for Play-Doh, it's flour and salt and a few other things, get the colors out, get any other contamination out, and bring it back into the loop. I think we're very excited to PETs, as David talked about, the best material. We see PET as the best material for beverage packaging today, and we're excited about the runway. You know, you can actually go around the loop in Germany where they collect it at over 95%. In as little as 5 days, you can get that bottle back in a consumer's hand. And that's today. And we're excited about the runway as we increase more recycled content, increase recycling, new advancements in PET, chemical or advanced recycling, and then even bio-based PET. So what does need to be added to the loop could be made from bio-based carbon sources, and not sources that use up valuable food land. It can come from bio-waste like sawdust. So we're excited to push and educate consumers on the value of PET, along with the fact that it's not single use.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all again for taking the time to come and talk with us. Before I let you escape to whatever the day has in store for you, we did have one or two questions from our viewers, so perhaps we could quickly go through those. We've had a couple of questions about the low price of oil and therefore virgin plastics could have on the viability of recycled plastics, and whether that will have a longer term impact on the circular economy. I wonder if maybe Dave from Amcor would like to field this one.
Yeah, and maybe Trevor or some others can step in here. They may have different perspectives, but
Yes,
certainly
sure.
certainly right now we do see a low cost of oil and a dropping price of virgin resin. I think one of the challenges that we have in the longer term is where do people place their values? And if we value a clean environment, if we value a circular economy, then that is going to have to be something that we incorporate into the new technologies that Nicola was talking about, and recycling infrastructure. And I think we're seeing that happening in society in different places. I think it's going to be very difficult in the short term and probably difficult in the long term for the recycling industry to compete against virgin resin because of that low price. But Amcor, and I know a number of our customers, have made commitments to use more recycled content, and we're going to have to weather this storm and then find the right solutions to make sure we have a sustainable, long-term industrial solution for recycling.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Yeah, Victor, may I add something? It's a very good question, and it reminds me of a seminar I attended. I think it was like 2004 or something. I was just starting, to work, and the key question was, will oil price was flirting around the $100 a barrel at the time. By the way, will oil price go to 200? What is the best usage of the last drops of oil? That was 2004. I think the last 15 years told us that, high oil, low oil society took a direction towards sustainability. Whether the oil is $100 a barrel or 20, 30, I think that changes a little bit the how, and that changes all our world right now. It's not going to stay at that level probably, but it doesn't change. I don't believe it changes the direction of the society. I don't believe it changes the direction of the new generation, and that is coming to power in this world. So again, $100 at the time, 120, and it was the beginning of sustainability. It got cut in half, and then we're fully talking about this. So I don't believe it's going to change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would add I think we need more support, like as David talked about with brands. The do nothing scenario of not using recycled content will help decouple it from oil. And we see that in Europe already, where our PET is decoupled from virgin PET because there's the 2025 EU policy. So the recycling needs a catalyst, whether it's policy or more brand owner commitments. That helps us to decouple from virgin oil, because then the do nothing doesn't exist. You can't just only use 100% virgin.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I know we are running slightly behind now, but we actually have one specifically for Jan from Niall Walker of Diageo. Do Avery Dennison consider that the concept of linerless labels will develop technically and become widely popular?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Indeed, I think linerless is there already for quite some time. When we see the applications that are developed over the years, so that's what we call self-wound systems, and systems that are being used in the tracking and tracing area. So not so much in decoration labels. Though I think there's a certain need to look at that as well. I think first steps are to reduce the materials. So look at alternative thinner liner constructions. We did a lot of work on that as well. At the same time, we are looking at, is there any possibility to find alternative ways of labeling, still having the same results, and then reduce the amount of liner. Having said that, liner materials are recyclable, and that's another area where the industry actually is also looking at. The paper liners are actually a quality product that can be recycled either into a liner again or used in other paper applications. Same with polyester liner. So those are the ways that we are looking at liner recycling and or reduction.
Okay.
Just in time.
Thank you. Thank you for fielding that one. Well, it's sadly, I think we don't really have time for any more questions, but I'd like to thank everyone who submitted questions. We're really glad to have that interaction. I'd like to say I've really enjoyed talking to all of you today, and I'm very grateful that you've come to keep me company at my lonely desk. Otherwise it would have been a very dull discussion, just me talking to myself. So thanks again to all our sponsors, Amcor, Avery Dennison, KP Films, Trinseo, Evertis and Husky. I'd also like to thank all our viewers who've tuned in today, and a preemptive thanks to any future viewers who may be watching us later on demand. Please do tune into our next live week broadcast on the 11th and 12th of May. And if you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to Back in Europe via our website and YouTube channel. One more final thing. I'll be swiftly dispatched if I forget to say this. The final deadline for our Sustainability Awards is in precisely 1 week from today. So that's Friday the 15th of May. We've had some very impressive entries so far, but we're always keen to receive more. So do think about it if you haven't already. Okay. So goodbye to our panelists and goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.